Okay, all right. And now I understand that you have mulga on your property. Now, I've visited some cattle stations out in Queensland, and I'm a 5 minute expert on mulga, but I get excited about mulga. Can you tell us why mulga is so important and why steak lovers in the city should know about mulga?
Yeah, absolutely. Ruth, I mean, the Mulga lands occupies over 25 million hectares in area. So it's a very large area, um, predominantly used for grazing purposes. The Mulga vegetation is a readily digestible plant that livestock thrive on. So it is a very important part of the nation's food security, if you like. And I guess one thing that makes it so unique, Ruth, is the fact that it's so drought resilient.
Yes, well, that's very topical, Dan, because, well, of course, the drought has occupied some sectors of the media for a long time, and that's been on top of the media attention, which has, this Royal Commission into Banking, which has revealed some awful treatment from the banks on farmers. So if you've got mulga on your property, that could feed your stock during a drought. And being that Australia is a land of drought and flooding rain, well, that is as an asset that you'd want to use. And that stands to reason.
Yeah, that's
Now,
right, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the only drought resistant type of grazing situations we find in Australia. There are only a limited number of places in the whole world where you have such drought resilient plants. So it's very important, yes.
oh yes, and as a consumer, I mean, I love my steak. So when I find out about the government trying to run interference between farmers and my dinner plate, I tend to get concerned. And anyone watching this, if you've got a favorite steakhouse, you might want to tag them, or you might want to, after this video is over or while it's playing, you might want to share it with them. And you also might want to share this video with your favorite chef, just to let them know what's happening. So now you've run into a bit of a problem with being the way you use your mulga. Are you allowed to use your mulga to feed your cattle?
Well, what's happening, Ruth? In recent years, we have government regulation of our properties to the extent where it is becoming extremely difficult to sustain our businesses and sustain our livestock on our properties with the mulga. It's largely all as a result of the Queensland state government implementing these regulations, but of course largely it's all part of the federal government's push to meet United Nations emissions targets. So what it's done is essentially turned our properties into conservation zones, which obviously makes it extremely difficult to run our businesses.
Right. And so have you been given a compliance order or something like that against? Can you explain how all that works?
Absolutely, Ruth. Yeah, it's gone a little bit further than that. I've been prosecuted in a magistrate's court for feeding my cattle, for using my vegetation. The charges that were put against me were called or characterised as carrying out accessible development without permit. So the government's regulation actually deems our feeding of our stock as development, and as such, I was prosecuted and fined a total of $112,000, $112,468.82. So for feeding my stock. So it's quite serious, they don't muck around with this stuff.
Okay, so feeding your cattle is a development.
Yes, in the eyes of the government it is now, yes, that's right.
Well,
Yes.
In the
I
words
mean,
of a famous, sorry, in the words of a famous, what's his name? Crocodile Dundee. That's not a development. This is a development.
that,
That's
that
amazing. So are you appealing this decision? When